Hello, everyone, and welcome to my live. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we are talking about slay the imposter syndrome and empowerment tips for Black women in the workplace. Again, thank you so much for being here. And to everyone watching the replay, thank you as well. I'm Dr. Twanna of TwannaCarter.com, your career coach for Black women. And we're here to talk about a topic that affects so many brilliant Black women in the workplace. A lot of us are actually affected by this, and that's why we're going to talk about it today, right? So, absolutely, we're going to be talking about the imposter syndrome. So, what is imposter syndrome? Let's start by defining that, right? So, imposter syndrome is that feeling that despite all of your qualifications and your experience and your achievements, you feel like you don't quite belong or that you're a fraud. It whispers enough doubt in the back of your mind. It starts to whisper that doubt in your ear, and you begin to question your own skills and accomplishments. And so, why does that hit Black women harder, right? Now, for Black women, the imposter syndrome can feel even more intense. Why? Because we're often navigating workplaces that haven't seen enough Black women in leadership roles. And there's also microaggressions, both the ones intentional and the ones unintentional. And then there's just societal stereotypes about who a leader is. And all of these can fuel self-doubt, which make imposter syndrome a constant battle. Right? So let's talk about recognizing the signs of imposter syndrome. So basically, it's like, how do you know if it's imposter syndrome or if it's just regular self-doubt? Here are some signs that I want you to watch out for when you're going through this. So yes, that constantly downplaying your accomplishments or attributing success to luck rather than skill. Feeling like you have to prove yourself over and over and over again, as well as just the fear of being exposed as a fake or exposed as a fraud. I used to feel like somebody's going to come snatch open that door and say, hey, she doesn't belong here. Her parents are poor. She didn't even have food to eat when she was growing up because, well, that's what happened. A lot of times that's the background that I came from. And so when I was in a room full of folks who, were middle class, they talk about their skiing vacations and they talk about flying over to these places for vacation. Vacation for us is driving down to Alabama to see our grandparents. This is as much of a vacation as we got. So I kind of felt like maybe I didn't belong here. My parents didn't do any of those things, right? And so that's what makes that fraud. You just feel like you're a fraud. So let's go ahead and look at slaying this beast, because again, it's enough about imposter syndrome. But what we want to talk about next is really want to talk about some practical tips to empower yourself and silence that inner critic. So tip number one, reframe your self-talk, right? And I'm going to put my comments over here to be sure I haven't missed anybody. So do feel free to drop your comments or your questions below, and I'll answer those while I am on air. Okay. I like to have that set up so I don't miss anything over there. So tip number one, I said, reframe your self-talk. You do have to challenge negative thoughts. And most people are surprised, but here's the reality. Just because you have a thought doesn't make it true. Does it? We have anywhere from 55 to 90,000 thoughts that flow through our mind every day. A lot of them are simply not true. So instead of saying things like, well, you know what? I don't think I deserve to be here. I don't deserve this promotion. Say instead, I've put in the work, I've studied, I've worked hard. I'm qualified for this opportunity, right? Tip number two, celebrate your wins, big and small. Did you lead a successful meeting today? Celebrate that. Did you receive positive feedback from a coworker, from a customer, from your boss, from whoever? Write that down. Did you give did you give a tip to a fellow coworker? Write that down because it means you stepped outside of yourself to help someone else along their way. Take a moment to acknowledge your accomplishments. Keep a wins journal, whether that's something you write in your own hand in a journal or whether you have an electronic journal, and there are plenty of those that you can put on your smartphone, or if you keep a little thing at work. I always kept like a win document at work where I would put things down like that so I could always go back and read it. Anytime I got an email from someone or someone said something, I will make sure I updated that document, right? It doesn't have to take much and it doesn't take long, right? So before we get to tip number 3, if you are finding value right now with this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up on the video or like it, and be sure to subscribe to my channel, right? Tip number 3, build your network. I can't stress this enough. Find mentors, allies, and sponsors who see your potential. Allies are really important too. I remember when I had a boss who was on her way out the door, okay? And she wrote my evaluation and she passed it off to my supervisor, to her supervisor, my senior rater, to give it to me. It was horrible. The evaluation was just horrible. When I say horrible, it was bad. We're talking about literally a career-ending evaluation. What she didn't know was I had an ally, and my ally was her boss. White male, but that was my ally. And so when I came in and sat down with him, he said, did she go over this with you? I went, no. Have you seen your evaluation? I said, no, sir. You haven't seen this? I said, no, sir. So he put it down on the desk. So while he wouldn't show it to me, well, I read upside down. Now, right side up, I read about 500 words per minute. A little slower than that upside down, but I was like, it was a bad evaluation. It was a horrible evaluation. But what he did say to me was this. He was basically giving me some advice. If you're going to write a piss poor evaluation for someone, then you need to have the balls to sit across the desk from them, look them face to face, and give it to them. And what else did he say? He said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So that don't worry about it became I walked out the room and everybody was buzzing around because he called her behind back. She was out of state. He's like, you got this much time to get here, rewrite the evaluation, and give it to her. So when I said that evaluation, that bad evaluation disappeared, it disappeared because I had an ally. Had I not had an ally, I would have had to appeal that and jump through all these hoops to try and get rid of that bad evaluation. So absolutely, yes, surround yourself with other Black women who understand your struggles and who can celebrate your successes, but don't forget about your allies. They literally can save your career, all right? And tip number 4, embrace strengths and your background. Your unique experiences and your cultural background are assets. It is what makes you uniquely different from most other people in the workplace, right? Because otherwise, everybody just looks like one box with the same one box of crayons with the same color. You don't want to just blend in. You do want to stand out. So don't shrink yourself to fit in. No, if there's a box of crayon and they're all yellow, be the red crayon, right? Stand out. Leverage your strengths and bring your authentic self to the table. When we say that D&I makes a difference to the bottom line and it brings in more dollars, that is why, because you're getting so many different perspectives coming in and it makes the product better. All right. And tip number 5, do practice self-care. Again, imposter syndrome can leave you doubting yourself and questioning yourself, which can raise your anxiety, which increases your stress, and it can really affect your overall mental health and your emotional health. So practice self-care, because feeling burned out fuels self-doubt. So do practice, prioritize your well-being, get enough sleep, get all of the 7 types of rest, eat healthy, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. Boundaries are there to protect you, not other people. They protect you. All right. And finally, remember that you belong here. This is your reminder that you are worthy. You're qualified. After all, Black women are the most educated population in America. You're qualified. You're worthy. You are absolutely belong to that workplace. Do not let imposter syndrome steal your shine. All right. Now it's your turn. If you had any questions you want to ask me about overcoming the imposter syndrome and thriving in your career, just drop them in the chat. And if you are watching this on a replay, yes, you can drop your question, your comments in the chat because I always circle back to answer questions. All right. And so in the comments below, go ahead and share your experiences with imposter syndrome and how you're working with overcoming it, right? So let's build a community of empowered Black women and allies who all support each other. All right. And so here's the thing. If you are looking for additional resources and tools, head over to the link in the comments or the description. I have it in the description because you can download my free downloadable imposter syndrome toolkit, specifically designed for Black women to help you slay the imposter syndrome. You see me glancing over here. I'm trying to see if I make sure I get any comments, but not to worry, if I don't get to them on air, I will definitely answer them after this. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And do remember that you are strong, you are well more than capable, and you deserve to succeed. Now go out there and slay your goals. I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.